it's now 4:30 and we're ready to start. So I'm Frances Meek from the British Nutrition Foundation, and I have my colleague Alex with us as well today, who's on the chat box, and he'll be there to answer any questions that you might have and put up some links maybe that might be useful for you. If you could let us know who you are, put your name in the chat box, make sure you've set it to all panelists and attendees, and that then means that everybody can see who you are and any questions that you might have. And we're absolutely delighted this afternoon to have Lucy Beattie from Three Ways School in Bath, and Jane Chong and Jane Kipax from Step and Stone in Bristol this afternoon to join us. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. So the webinar is being recorded and will be available on Food Effective Life, hopefully tomorrow, if not the next day. As I said before, if you've got any questions, please type them in the chat box and they'll be answered either at the end or actually hopefully as we go along. At the end of the webinar, there will be a very short evaluation which you will be redirected to. It should only take about a minute to complete, and we're always very grateful for the feedback we receive because it helps us improve what we do at BNF and Food Effective Life, and also make sure that we're doing the training that you as teachers actually need. Once you've actually completed the evaluation, you'll be directed to a downloadable certificate. If you download that, add your name to it, and then you can print it out for your records. Just a little bit word about the evaluation. It doesn't always happen that you'll automatically get redirected, but don't worry about that. We'll make sure that we send it to you tomorrow as a link so that you can complete it. So the topic this afternoon is careers in hospitality and catering, opportunities for young people with additional needs. And this is the third in a series of webinars that we've been doing around supporting teachers of pupils with additional needs. And we're delighted, as I said earlier, that we have Lucy and Jane with us this afternoon to give us some great insight into how you can support pupils and also parents and carers in helping the young people get into meaningful employment. So what we're going to be covering today is understanding the role that young people with additional needs can play in catering or hospitality, building relationships. That's going to be very important in order to make sure that the work experience is successful. And they'll also be talking about, in the videos that we're going to be showing, Lucy and Jane will be giving you some ideas actually how you can make sure that that work experience and employment is positive and successful. We're going to be having some practical examples from both organisations that support young people into meaningful employment. And then I'll also be going through some resources that you can use with your pupils, and also some professional development support that's available for you from Food Effective Life. And then finally at the end, we'll have some suggestions for further sources of information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to unshare my PowerPoint and then share a video which I'll show you, which will run for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then at the end, we'll continue with the webinar and go through the resources and any questions that we might have from you for our presenters.
Hi, my name's Lucy Beattie. I work at Three Ways School. We're a generic special school based in Bath. We have students aged 4 to 19, all with learning disabilities, but with a range of other disabilities as well. Very often our students have 1 or 2 different diagnoses, some even more than that. At the moment, we have 223 students on site. The school's been running since 2005 and was actually built for 150 students, but like many special schools, we are bursting at the seams and we have to turn young people away every year. On site we have 3 Cafe Kitchen, which is our cafe which is open to the public and offers training and work experience to young people with special needs from the school. There's only one other special school in our local authority, and they specialise more in higher functioning young people with autism. And we have built up over the 12 years that I've worked here really good links to other local and national networks to support the work of the school. So today I'm here really to talk to you about 3 Cafe Kitchen and the model that we've created. So I started work on 3 Cafe Kitchen about 11 years ago. It was a piece of land in front of the school that wasn't really used very much. It was kind of a bike shed and a bit of a seating area. And our head at the time said that she would really like to have an enterprise centre. So somewhere for young people to go and do work experience, for them to have on-the-job training, but be supported by familiar staff from the school, and prove to the community that our young people are very capable of working, but also provide a community resource. So provide a hub for our local area. So we're quite a residential area with a hospital opposite us, and a lot going on, but not really, there isn't really a local hub sort of for providing a meeting space for people to come and meet with friends, and for parents to go, because over 70% of our young people are brought to school on transport, on school transport. So that means there isn't the natural support given at the school gates. There isn't the chance to meet other parents and to talk about what's going on in your life. So 11 years ago, I started fundraising to build from the ground 3 Cafe Kitchen. And over the course of about 5-6 years, we developed the plans and got planning permission and raised just over £500,000 to build 3 Cafe Kitchen, and then to put the staff in place for at least the first year until we were able to get the cafe up and running and sort of prove our model and make sure that we had the right things going on within 3 Cafe Kitchen. So we've got a beautiful outside sitting area and a nice spacious airy inside area, and plenty of space for young people to work in along different elements of everything within the cafe. So why did we do this? In our local authority, we have Project Search at the council and at the hospital. Project Search is a supported internship model. So that means that young people are supported in working as well as having some classroom time. But our young people at school aren't ready for Project Search when they're 13, 14, 15. But we wanted to build that pathway into paid work. And probably it's too small for you to see, but the Preparing for Adulthood model here, it gives a pathway into paid work, which means that young people start with encounters with employers as early as possible, and they build up to doing work experience, whether that be internally in school or when they're capable externally. And we did a lot of work looking at how we could make that pathway far more practical for our young people and achievable for our young people, and the cafe was the sort of culmination of all that work. We have worked closely with BASE, the British Association for Supported Employment, and obviously created the fundraising through our charity arm, through our PTA and our charity arm, in order to be able to build 3 Cafe Kitchen and carry on its running. So we could see that there was a real need to give our young people work experience, but the community of employers in the local area were almost scared of giving work experience to our young people. They didn't know, unless you know someone who has special needs, who has learning difficulties, it can be quite a daunting thing to work with someone, offer to work with someone with special needs. And unless you understand the way that the school works, that we would always take a young person for a visit, that we would support the young person, and we might even have a member with them all the way through their work placement, and that we would carve out jobs for them, and that we would support them and scaffold them in doing that work. It's a difficult thing to find work experience for our young people. So we knew that if we had the cafe on site, that we could begin to build up those relationships with local employers and sort of break down some of those barriers to employment, or even to go on to further training and work experience after school. So what happens day to day in our cafe? So on an average day, we have sort of 4 or 5 young people who go and do work experience in the cafe. We have 3 staff members in the cafe, some part-time and 2 full-time. And what they do is the manager just runs the cafe, does a lot of the chefing and sort of menu planning and ordering and stuff like that. But we have a jobs coach in the cafe, and we have a deputy manager, and they both support the students going into the cafe. So every student, we sit down and we look at their capabilities with the staff in school and with them, and we look at what roles there are within the cafe. So there's everything from cooking, cleaning, restocking, preparing the meal, serving the customer, tidying the tables, all the normal roles within a cafe. And we look at what is going to suit that young person, and we carve up the job so that we give them a set of tasks that they will build from day one to over the course of a term, or however long they're going to be doing work experience with them. And we build their role within the cafe around that young person. And we make sure that each day they sit at the beginning of their work experience and they write what they're going to try, or we facilitate them to create a log of what they're going to try and do. And then at the end of the day, we do a sort of feedback and record keeping so that they've got a really good log of what they've achieved during their work experience. So we also offer small groups. So on a Wednesday, we have a cooking group, and they go and prepare all the pastry and the cakes that will be used in the cafe over the period of a week. And each day we have a small group who come in and prepare the lunch trolley for that day. So that trolley goes around all the staff and the staff at the other school. That we've got 2 other schools on site, and that trolley will go around with meal deals. So they'll have salad boxes, they'll have sandwiches, drinks, crisps, all those kind of things, and it's taking lunches to people in our local community, and a small group will prepare that. And we tie in with a lot of other work around the school, around employability, around encouraging our young people to learn the skills that they need for careers. And we do a lot of inviting employers in. So we work with local cafes and restaurants to come in and maybe do a workshop, a one-off workshop. So we've had Richard Burtonay come in and do a one-off workshop on making bread. And we invite employers in to see what our young people are doing and sort of to work with small groups so that we build those relationships. And then once the students are ready, we get them out on placement. So this is where we are now, our journey from having a piece of land right to building the cafe. And you can see in the centre here, Richard Burtonay working with a student sort of learning to make bread. Last year we won Winner of Winners for the Bath Life Award, and we won Best Social Enterprise Best Charity for the cafe. And we have students in groups doing the lunch trolley and individually doing their work experience. So it's really, really lovely to bring the place alive and to see the journey that we've had since we've been open 3 years ago. All this work fits into the Gatsby benchmarks. So if you work in a school, you have to deliver the Gatsby benchmarks, which are all around the careers employment programme. And you need to have a stable careers programme, and you need to be offering encounters with employers and experiences of workplaces. And the cafe enables us to do this on a really grand scale. It enables us to work really closely with the students on a one-to-one basis and make sure that they are linking what they're learning through their AQAs in school to the work that they're doing, and sort of really bring alive the careers education that we offer at Three Ways. And we do a lot of the other things around the Gatsby benchmarks in schools. So we do a lot of visits to local employers. We do work taster days, work experience. Each week over lockdown, we've had an employer Zoom in and talk about how they got into their job, what their job is like, and give us an insight and have a Q&A sessions. We have a careers advisor who comes into school, and we offer work experience. So all our year 11s and our year 13s are going out on work experience at the end of June and the beginning of July this year. And right from primary, we have things embedded in the curriculum like role play and topics and links to the labour market. And we create vocational profiles for each of our young people, which will say what they're interested in, and it will build on, it will give an idea of the work experience that they've done and the different experiences that they've had, and we can build on that. And we run the Tycoon, which is an enterprise programme run by Peter Jones, the Peter Jones Foundation, and it's about, a bit like Dragon's Den, giving young people a chance to create their own enterprise. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we get the message out to other local employers, and this is one of our key drivers at the moment, is that we want employers to understand about what we're doing, and we want them to know the capabilities of our students. So we created a round table with other people in our community who work with people with learning difficulties to support them into work. And from that round table came a magazine that is, it targets employers, and it goes out through the council to local employers to talk about some of the issues that people with learning difficulties face, but also to talk about some of the benefits to employers of employing someone with learning difficulties, and the support that's available. So the jobs coaching, the access to work funding, and the different support that's available, the training that's available to employers. Excuse me. So this Opening Doors is a very localized magazine with case studies locally, and we're currently updating it. But it gives the support and the information to employers about how they can take it on someone with special needs and what is out there to support them to do so. So we work hard to engage employers, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we do that. So we have a careers fair, we make cold calls. If we know a student is particularly interested in a certain area, we'll do some research around who are the employers in that area and approach them. We do a lot of social media around the cafe and build up awareness in that way. And I attend lots of networking events to make sure that we get our voice out there, and that people know about us and sort of aware of the cafe and coming in to use the cafe, but also about what we're trying to do for our young people. So in conclusion, what we have found works over our 3 years of having the cafe open, but also of developing our careers curriculum, is that nothing can replace real work experience, so that our families and our young people see that work is positive and possible. One of our big barriers to getting young people into work is their family not believing in their potential, or being worried about benefits, or being worried about how that will affect the family dynamics. Often a carer or a parent has been at home the whole of the lifetime of a young person. And so that idea that they're going to go out to work and be self-sustaining is very scary. And so we can work with them to make sure that they've got the information around benefits, and that they've got the support, and they've seen that their young person is very capable. We have a really vocational based curriculum that supports the young people's aspirations. So our ASDAN qualifications and AQA qualifications all sort of build on that vocational curriculum, which will come, all be used in their work experience. We work really closely with supported employment in organisations like Project Search and like MenCap, who are able to build relationships with the young people in school, and maybe when they go on to college, and then hopefully they might go into a supported employment situation after that. We really want to collaborate and raise awareness within our community, so that we raise the aspirations and expectations of all our community, and we build good relationships. We have a good business case, and we make ourselves as visible as possible with employers, and we've had some really, really lovely work placements come from that. So we've got a lovely independent hotel in Bath called Number 15, and 3 of our young people have done work experience there, and they are really keen to carry on working with us. They see the benefits, the feel-good factor, but also the benefits of a long-term potential employees, of a sort of talent pipeline of working with us when it's a difficult time after Brexit and things to recruit people to maybe those entry-level jobs. Our young people are sitting there waiting to be employed, and with the right training support, they can be employed. And we are really person-centered, so it's really individual, and we really plan on for the young person themselves and prepare them for adulthood. And a major sort of block to people being employed, as we know, is always the reliance on benefits, and we need to work with the whole range of not only letting employers know, but letting parents know and the young people themselves how you can work and still have benefits, or flex your benefits to be able to support you going into work. So that's me, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you so much to the British Nutrition Foundation for inviting us today to talk to you about our experiences of working with young people with learning disabilities in our artisan bakery in Bristol.
So we set up Stepping Stone in 2016. Jane and I are basically mums of 2 people with learning disabilities, and we know that education is a fabulous, inclusive place for our young people to be. But actually, we were very concerned that when education finishes, there's a bit of a cliff edge, and we were pretty shocked to find out that actually only 6% of people with learning disabilities are in a paid job, even though, according to MENCAP, it's more than 60% actually really express the wish to have a job. And we know that our young people with learning disabilities really do make very good employees, and they might need a little bit of extra deliberate support in the early days, but actually once they've actually mastered a task, then they will accomplish that task very reliably, and also make quite long-standing employees who are very diligent and loyal. And the second benefit is that research has shown that they really have they really can lift the morale of the rest of the team.
So how do we work with our young people? We're actually an artisan bakery in Bristol, a real working bakery making a product which we sell. We've won a number of product awards. We're a social enterprise, and we work with our young people to develop their skills and confidence in this real world setting so that they can eventually move into employment. So the skills that we are actually teaching are real transferable skills that an employer would really find it helpful for somebody coming into a job to really have on board. We also understand the importance of increasing confidence and social skills, and we've just started a social communications project, which we hope, again, will boost confidence and the ability of our young people to really function well in the workplace and in life.
So how do we do this? Well, we actually have work diaries which have set out 8 key skill areas. As Jane has said, these are skill areas that aren't specific to baking. They're much more generic work skill areas or skills that will be useful for work in general. So it's things like pace and quality, it's listening skills, it's dealing with change, things like that. And each one of those 8 key skill areas is further broken down into 4 subdivisions, so that we present all of this very visually, so our young people can really see how they're progressing, which again instills confidence in them. And we use these work diaries to help determine what the next targets and goals are. So once one skill area has been completely mastered, then we might move on to the next. We also use errorless learning and a lot of visual aids such as laminated recipe cards and large typeface words as well, to make all the resources as accessible as possible.
So a little bit more about our techniques. So errorless learning, the concept of that is just to offer just enough supports for success. So not over supporting, but really understanding that level of support that's required for success. It's much easier to build confidence that way from so that people have actually accomplished a task and felt a sense of achievement from doing that, than trying to pick up the pieces if perhaps something's been too difficult and there's a sense of failure. So as Jane's mentioned, we use recipe cards which have got both the words, perhaps 500 grams of flour, and then there's a picture of the actual box that our flour is stored in, so it's very clear. So even those who are non-verbal can really, non-literate can actually access that from the pictures. We also use scaffolding, again, which requires demonstration of techniques, working alongside our young people and just offering just enough support to achieve success. You can see in the picture there, Sarah and Grace are working alongside one another. Sarah's breaking off the dough. Grace is then doing the next stage of rolling it into a ball. And this is a really supportive way of working to encourage independence and confidence.
Some of the other techniques we use, I think it's important to point out as well that everybody is an individual, and they will all have their own particular learning profile. So some people will actually need the visual aids, but others possibly might not. So we really do treat every single person as an individual. I think everybody does benefit from having a very encouraging and positive workplace, though. So for us, it's far more important to encourage a can-do approach, and actually to have some positive expectations, because actually it doesn't matter at the end of the day if we have to throw a batch away. The most important thing is that actually our young people can have a go and learn from that. So there's no such thing as failure. It's all just lessons that we can learn. Another thing we found with some of our young people is that giving people time and space to respond, and not just jumping in too quickly, because some of our young people might have auditory processing delays and they just need a little bit of extra time to reflect on what they're being asked and then to act on that. We also can check their understanding, perhaps by getting them to repeat back to us what they think they've understood, or we might repeat the request or rephrase it. And the last technique we really use is a huge important part for most of our young people, is actually having a very well structured day. So you can see the photo at the bottom. Photo is about getting ready for work, and that's a visual process that people can follow, particularly when they're new to the bakery. They might actually sort of follow those instructions. Okay, this is what I do. Again, it increases everybody's independence. And then the photo at the top is actually a job choices board. So people can actually go to that board and say, oh, today I'd like to do some packaging, and they can go and lift a visual off, and then that's a way of indicating the different tasks that they want to get involved in.
We've just got here some more pictures of some of the resources that we use. So you can see there on the left, Izzy is working at doing some packaging. She's got a list there of the weights that are accessible. We have to are acceptable. We have to have at least 100 grams of product in each box. So there's a sort of we say that the minimum must be 106 grams, and I think the maximum is 112. So she can see there quickly exactly where she is on that, and either take one out or add one more into the pack as required. She's also got some shapes there, 15 shapes drawn out corresponding to the number of lavash. So she'll count those out first of all, and that is roughly about the amount that we need. But that's a really good visual prompt to make sure that she's pretty much got the right amount in the packet. In the middle there's another sign which is actually up on the wall. So it shows that when they're balling dough, we need the weight needs to be between 10 and 11 grams, and it's a really quick reference. They can just look up and see and get the confidence, and again allowing them more independence to be able to do that on their own. The other one on the right, that's on the door of the fridge. So as we make batches, they go into the fridge, they get numbered so that we're actually taking out the first batch first. So that's just had its half-hour resting time, and there's a little number line there again that people can refer to. So it's all trying to set up our young people for success, encouraging independence and success. That's what we're all about.
Thanks, Jane. So I think we mentioned that important part of what we do is actually support our young people when they're ready into paid employment, if that's what they'd like, and that's not for everybody. Again, we're very person-centered, so we very much take on board the views of the individual. But what we do is we go back over some of the career choices that our young people can make. Just because they're with us in the bakery, it doesn't necessarily mean that they actually want to work in a bakery or even a catering sector. And we have actually supported people into office work as well as cafes and other baking positions. So we just do a refresher really around giving them lots of information about the different jobs and chatting through with them what type of job they actually would like us to help them get. We will help them develop their CVs if necessary, and we will help them practice interview questions. We'll go along to them with accompany them to the interview, and And we also target employers on behalf of the young person. And this is a key part of our success. We feel that employers, there's a lot of goodwill out there from employers, but actually often people just don't know even where to start. So the whole concept behind what we offer is actually trying to make it easy for the employer to actually understand what might be expected of them. So we offer free training to the employer. We help them with set up a buddy, which is again an important, I'll come back onto that a bit later. So we really work with the employer, and once the trainee is in position as well, we give them the support they need for as long as they need it to maximise the potential for success. So a key important thing that works actually for us is actually appointing a work buddy. So this is somebody who probably isn't their manager, but it's just somebody who can stand alongside the trainee and just be an unofficial go-to person to help them settle in, and they know that they can ask this buddy any question that they want without fear of any repercussions or anything. So that's what we do on the work readiness side.
Lovely. Thank you so much for listening today. We're really happy to tell you some of our experiences and thoughts, and hope that it's helpful. We'd be really happy to answer any questions you might have. If you wanted to know a little bit more about Stepping Stone, please go and have a look at our website, and you can even find out where to buy our lovely lavash if you haven't tried them. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much, Lucy and Jane and Jane. Some really wonderful insights into what your organisations and school do in order to help young people into meaningful employment. And as I said at the beginning, we'll come to you at the end for any questions, but I have seen that there's been quite a lot of comments going on the chat box, so perhaps they've been answered as we've gone along. So I'm just going to talk about some of the resources that we have at Food Effective Life that can support you in schools. And this is a guide which has recently been published. You may have seen it already. It's the characteristics of good practice in teaching food nutrition education to pupils with additional needs. And it's the third in a series of guides that we've developed at the British Nutrition Foundation. And we have one for primary schools, secondary schools, and now for pupils with additional needs. And what's particularly different with this guide is that we have two new key characteristics, one of which is developing skills for independent living, and the other is developing skills for work. So there's a whole chapter that actually gives great insights and examples about how you can help your young people at school into work and their future employment. So there's a link on the screen that you can actually access that guide if you'd like to at another time. So some of our other resources, so we've got over 2,000 resources on Food Effective Life, but some of these on here are just ones that I think that would be particularly suitable when thinking about the world of work. So we've got some knowledge organisers which cover lots of different topics like cooking, food safety, nutrition, lots of different things that might be useful for your young people. We've also got some recipes that perhaps you might like to use with the young people at school to get them thinking about cooking if they were going to be going into catering maybe. We've got some resources around food hygiene and safety. We've also got some how-to videos which are quite good that the pupils and young people can actually watch to get to see different food skills and actually practice those food skills before they go into the world of work. And we've also got some mapping documents that help teachers find suitable resources for qualifications if you're at that stage with your pupils. So we've got one particularly which maps our Food Effective Life resources to the BTEC Home Cooking Skills Level 1 and 2 qualifications. But then we also have mapping documents for the other food qualifications across the UK, so Scotland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales. We've also got some support for your own professional development. So we've developed some reflective documents which are based on the characteristics guide. and there's one for each characteristic, and this one is particularly, that's on the screen, is for developing skills for work, and they help teachers to actually reflect on their own practice and to think about how they could perhaps improve that or work on that to enhance their own professional development, but also the teaching and learning for their pupils. And there are some other resources available on the website that you can have a look at if you would like to work on your own professional development. And then we said we'd cover some sources of support and further information. So at the back of the characteristics guide, we've actually got 3 pages of web links to lots of different organisations, information documents, that sort of thing that you might find useful, and they're linked to each of the characteristics, so you'll find those at the back of the document. But then also, following on from Lucy's presentation, I've put a couple of links on here to the Gatsby Foundation, and particularly to the good career guidance information that they have produced for young people with special educational needs. So that might be worth having a look at it if you're involved, particularly with careers in your school. So just a little bit about further training. So I said earlier on that this is the 3rd in a series of webinars that we've done for teachers of pupils with additional needs. And the webinar recordings of the 2 previous webinars are available online if you wanted to watch those back. We've also got some online training. So to go along with the characteristics guide, we've got an online course which is free for people to undertake. So that's available on the website. And then as Food, a Fact of Life, we've got a number of masterclasses, webinars, and then also some practical food skills workshops and further online training taking place later on in the year. And there's an article on the website which sets out all the different training that we're going to be doing. So to find out more about our training, you could go to the website and go to the training area where there's more information and booking details. But we've also got a specific newsletter that goes out every couple of months or so around PPD, personal professional development, and that will tell you when new training is available and other things that we think are useful for you to know. So if you want to sign up for that, you'll be one of the first people to know when we've got new training available. So before we finish, what I'd like to do is invite Lucy and Jane to unmute themselves, and we can then see if there are any questions that need to be answered. You may well have answered them as we've gone along, but I've got a couple of questions to ask you if there aren't any other questions from anybody else. So hopefully you'll be able to answer these for me. So just one for Jane to begin with. This is really just as parents of young people with additional needs. It was really just whether you got any advice for parents and carers that you think would be particularly useful.
I would say perhaps it's important for the parents and carers to have high expectations, really. I think we've worked with some of our families that haven't really had very positive expectations, and sometimes that can almost limit the young person to some extent. I think, Lucy, you referred to a similar idea in your presentation as well. So I think it's been, for us, I think it's really important to involve the families and explain what we're doing. And really, I think I'm thinking of one particular family that I think we've really lifted their idea of their future for their daughter, actually. And I think that's quite helpful. That's something that I didn't expect would be a role for us, but I think there is a role for us there.
That's great, thank you. And Lucy, have you got anything that you can add to what Jane said? Oh, Lucy, we can't hear you actually. Right, no, we can't hear you. Right, what we'll do is, whilst we're trying to sort that out, we will just ask another question of Jane and Jane. So what can schools do to prepare their pupils to the world of work? Jane, are you able to help with that one?
So the question was, what can schools do to help prepare?
Yes.
I think work experience has got to be one of the most important things, because I think until, I think there is a lack of understanding sometimes around actually what work is from our young people. So we're in the very fortunate position now at Stepping Stone, because when new people arrive in the bakery, they come in and they see everybody, and they're all wearing their aprons and they're all wearing their gloves and they've washed their hands and they're hard at work. Whereas actually, and some of our new young people now, they come in and they go, oh, that's what work is. Oh, and I work really hard until it's break time, and then I take my break, and then it's back to, so it's just getting that opportunity of actually going out from an education setting and experiencing the world of work for the first time. I think that's very, very powerful. But I think the other key thing is obviously trying not to, it's very easy as a parent, coming back to being a parent, to channel our young people down a certain route, and actually it's trying not to push them down a certain route just because it's easy. It's actually trying to open up their eyes and their options, and again, they get that through work experience. So I'd say work experience is a hugely valuable part of school.
Yes.
I'm hoping that, can you hear me now?
Yeah. We can, Lucy. Excellent, thank you. Brilliant.
Sorry, I came out and went back in again. I think one of the key things is working with parents from as early on as possible. So we try from sort of year 9, but before, if we can, to start talking to parents about preparing for transition into whatever's after school, and also getting them as much information as possible available in different ways. So available online, but available on paper, available through a teacher talking to them or a social worker talking to them about options of what, how they fund things, what support is available, and those kind of things are really important, because it's a frightening transition from being very looked after in the school environment and having that team around the child. The frightening transition to after school, and as you say, quite often it's a fall off the cliff edge. So yeah, with us, we just try and give them as many and as wide a range of experiences as possible, so that you have those experiences and you have the confidence in your own ability to be able to do whatever you want to do after school, or whatever is open to you after school.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you. And then the other question, actually, which was for Lucy, but Jane and Jane, you may have something to say for this as well, is that really sort of a top tip for teachers and schools for building relationships with local employers. So obviously, Lucy, you've got your fantastic work experience programme at the Three Ways, and you've got your cafe, which is wonderful, and I've been to. For other schools and other teachers who haven't perhaps got the same experiences that you can offer for your pupils, sort of any top tips for building relationships?
I think it's that, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Paranoid now that you can't. I think it's about building those. So we do a survey of parents each year to ask if anyone's willing to help out with careers, so where they work, and whether anyone there is willing to come in and talk about what they do, what their job is. We also talk to staff about partners and friends and family, and it's about building that network, so that you've got people that you can ask. We work very closely with the Careers and Enterprise Company. We have someone called an enterprise coordinator, who is a volunteer from the community, who helps link us to businesses. And I do quite a bit of networking and sort of Twitter following and stalking people. So if I know that as a young person who's really interested in sport, I will start sort of speaking. We've got someone out on work experience at the football club next week, and so I just through LinkedIn contacted the chair of the football club and sort of asked them what they thought, and they filtered that down. So it's perseverance and a bit of nosiness and a bit of creating a spider's webs of contacts. And I think I'm lucky in that I've been here a long time, and I've worked in other roles in Bath as well and the surrounding areas, so that I've built that. But it does take time, but it also takes without want of a better word, the balls to just ask everyone. You know, they can only say no. And actually, when you explain what you're trying to do, most people are willing to give half an hour online to come and talk to some young people. And then once they've done that, they see that actually it's not that scary to do. So then they're willing to have them into work, and then they're willing to have a work placement. And you build up that relationship sort of slowly, catchy monkey, really.
Great, that's brilliant. Thank you. And Jane and Jane, anything to add to that?
I mean, something, so we're very lucky. We employ a work transitions manager who used to place young adults with special educational needs in City of Bristol College. So she now works for Stepping Stone, and she's fabulous. She's done that job for ages. But for us, I think an important thing is actually looking at the area where the individual lives, because it's no point in getting a job for someone, even if it's a job they really want, if they're very settled in a particular house with sharing with some housemates in north of Bristol. We're not going to send them over to Bath for a job if you know. So we, and again, I think it's just guts, isn't it? It's you just pick up the phone and ask, or you pop your nose around the door and say, explain what you're doing, and or email. You know, it's just taking. Yeah. You will get some no's, but then occasionally you'll get a yes, and that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah. Keep persisting.
Great, thank you. And I just understand that there's, from Alex, that there was one question actually for Jane and Jane. Do you do any work that would link with the curriculum? And I know your young people, I think, are probably older, they're sort of post-school age, aren't they? But do you do anything that links to the curriculum?
Not knowingly, I don't think. Jane.
No, not to the national curriculum. No, we're sort of although we do have, you know, we employ a qualified teacher, and she's very much focused on, but it's all practical numeracy and literacy with regards to specifically what happens at the bakery. So it might be measuring out things, and she'll do number work in terms of, is 250 grams. So if you've measured 255 grams of flour, is that more or less? And so we do a little bit of sort of explicit teaching and learning around that sort of thing, but it's nothing explicitly that's linked to the curriculum. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Right, so I think that's all the questions. Thank you very much. So thank you once again for taking the time to be involved with this webinar and recording your presentations and joining us this afternoon. We really do appreciate it. So thank you very much as attendees as well. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As I said at the beginning, you will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, redirected to an evaluation when I close the webinar. This may not always happen, as I said earlier, but don't worry, we will send you the link via email. And particularly if you're using a tablet or a mobile phone, it tends not to happen. So we'll send that to you tomorrow. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jane and Lucy again, and have a very good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.